The program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
Now, you may have seen some of the mist already this morning. We are sitting right down in the valley, surrounded by mist. And this is Safari Live.
Ready. Standing by.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You are live, you are live.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Safari Live. My name is Byron, and on camera with me is Craig this morning. You may have seen Jamie already on the other vehicle, and then James will be, I wonder if he's going to be tenting or walking this morning. We'll find out shortly, and then the lovely ladies in the final control. So James is going to be in the tent this morning. I'm a little bit worried about all the moisture around at the moment. As you can see, it is a gloomy, misty morning, and we are right down in the mist at the moment. Now, I'm down in the southern part of the property because we heard lions calling not so long ago. Now, I'm hoping that they decide to call again. It might help us find them. I'm hoping to find some lions this morning. Now, don't forget, everybody, we are completely live. Send us your questions at #SafariLive. Questions or comments. We love hearing from all of our viewers, and we'll happily answer your questions as the drive goes on. Now, I'm going to get going and see if I can't find any tracks of these lions or lion. I'm not sure how many there are and have been moving around, and we shall see if we can find them. I don't know if it's not quite dark enough. It's not quite dark enough for my spotlight just yet. Alright, well, I'm not too far from the southern boundary. Let me go have a look down there. While we do that, Jamie is going to give me a hand in trying to find lions this morning.
I am indeed, although I'm very curious to know if Byron is planning on the morning getting darker to when he can use the spotlight, or perhaps I heard that wrong. Either way, good morning and welcome to the Sunrise Safari. My name is Jamie, and this morning Sensor is on camera with me. Once again, Sensor, it's been ages since you've been on the back of my vehicle. It's been a really long time. Sometimes it just works that way, where the cameraman and the presenter shifts don't quite fit together. So it's nice to have you back here, the Sensor. Right, so this morning we are searching for lions. Now first I just want to go and pop my head into the hyena den, see if anybody's home. I didn't hear any whooping last night, but that doesn't mean they're not around. And I've got a sneaky suspicion they're going to move soon. So it'd be nice to take advantage of them. Not advantage of them, that sounds terrible. It'd be nice to see them while we can. It is quite chilly this morning. I've forgotten what the temperature is. I think it was around about 18-ish. Give or take, so in the 60s, high 60s Fahrenheit. Yeah, 18 and 65, so mid 60s Fahrenheit, which for us is positively Arctic. I am exaggerating. At least we're dry. Right, let's just see if anybody's home at the hyena den. And then we're going to go to the east and hope that that lion has not decided to go wandering even further east. I'm also hoping if I sit at the hyena den, I'll be able to hear them roaring. Might give me a better idea of exactly where they are. Luckily, there's 4 of us looking for them. So you'd think we'll probably get lucky. There's not a single hyena track on this road. Oh, no, that's not true. That's a bald-faced lie. There is a hyena track on this road. A fresh hyena track going that way. This road to the hyena den has become so familiar, I'm pretty sure I could do it in my sleep. Interesting question from Weedy, talking about our lions roaring this morning. Moidi was wondering, does the mist actually change the distance that a lion's roar would travel? Would it travel further or would it not? The one thing that makes a difference is the temperature. The colder it is, the farther the lion's roar travels, which can actually be quite deceptive. And it caught me out recently because I've been used to listening to lions roar when it's nice and warm, which meant I thought they were much closer than they actually turned out to be. So the lion's roar travels further in the cold. The mist, I think, would have quite a dampening effect. But if the lion were roaring where the mist is, it would have a dampening effect regardless because it's low. It's a low-lying area. So obviously, if a lion is roaring on a crest, it's going to travel a little bit further than it would if it's lying in the middle of a valley. And that is where the mist is. But good question. These are all rough calculations. I think we should get physics majors. Maybe not. All the calculations that we have to do in terms of working out where an animal is and how far they are. Practice helps. No. Hyenas are not home. Once again, we proved to be unlucky at the hyena den. Oh well, we'll just have to keep trying. At some point we've got to get lucky. As Byron and myself brave the chilly mornings of the wild, James is wrapped up nice and cozy in the tent.
It is a never-ceasing amazement to me that the jokes about the tent and the warmth at which the person in the tent is subjected compares with the hardiness of those who are risking their lives out in the wilderness to bring us great pictures. This is tiresome, of course. I am now sitting outside. I'm not wrapped up warm. I'm enjoying the sunrise. I'm reading a good book about flowers and things like that. So I think it's rather unfair to say I'm wrapped up. But yes, I am in and around the tent. My name is James Hendry, and it is very pleasant to have David, of course, on camera again. The old team back together again for, well, maybe a last hurrah before all the movements of Kenya and the new television series, etc., etc. Hashtag Safari Live. We are as live as Jamie and Byron. And the other important thing to say that is on, of course, Twitter. Now, many of you perhaps are not using Twitter, and if you would like to know how to use Twitter, well, just Google Twitter, and you can make yourself an account, and then the hashtag is the way of communicating with us. It's all very complicated if you do not come from the technological age, which I do not, of course, and so I just accept that these things happen, and somehow the questions, if you write them with the hashtag Safari Live, gets through to Megan in the final control via whoever's on D2 today. I think it's Louise, is it? It's Louisey. Good. So that's how you get hold of us. Hashtag Safari Live on the tweet. Now today in the tent, well, I'm not sure what we're going to show you. We'll have a look at bits and pieces. We'll try and relate them to whatever's happening out there in the wilderness. The tent, at least the bushwalk camera, is in fact working again, and so by this afternoon we'll be back out on foot, so we won't be in the tent for too much longer. If you would like to see anything in the tent, please feel free to tell us, and I will do my level best to show you whatever it is in the tent that may have piqued your interest. In the meantime, while I search and forage around here, I'm not going to sit around on my bottom for the rest of the day. Jamie is still looking for lions, and I shall try and help her by listening.
That's a brilliant idea, James. That's exactly what I need, because as you drive along with the sound of the vehicle and the sound of my own voice rattling in my ears hour after hour, I might not pick up on a lion's roar, but James will in the tent. James, of course, with his extra acute hearing, James hears things very, very well, so hopefully he'll be able to pick up on a lion's roar and tell us where to go. I'm now going in the complete opposite direction of where I was going. I've decided to go with gut instinct, which is suggesting right on the boundary between Djuma, Buffelshoek and Torchwood. And one male lion that keeps popping out there, I see his tracks, and then he goes straight back into Buffelshoek. So perhaps it's him. And we've got one vehicle going off to Simbambili, which is where the Nkuhumas were, to see if they've come back. Byron is to the south. I'm going to the north and to the east. And we'll just keep circling till we find something. It's also very, very quiet in quarantine. There's no wildebeest. I'm just gonna do a loop because I'm surprised at how quiet it is. Oh, really? That's interesting. I had absolutely no idea about that. Thank you, Michael. Michael shared with us that one of the Nkuhumas is now blind in her right eye. Apparently Michael saw that on pictures posted by Nkoro. I did not know that. Obviously it's been a while since we've seen them. I certainly didn't pick up on anything. Ha! Hello. I thought I saw a big bird. Hey. How lovely is that? There are things on quarantine. Very endangered things, in the form of ground hornbills. I saw this group yesterday when they went to bed. They were all looking very miserable and tucked up. There's another 3 in that tree over there. I think there's 3 there. It might just be 2. Now this is the group. I think Tristan said he saw 6 in this area. How special is that? 6 of these massive endangered birds. And one of my all-time favorites. And I think what really truly wins me over when it comes to these birds is the sound that they make. That kook 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 kook. So I just saw 3 fly off, and I can see 3 in this tree. So that's right, that's 6 of them. Oh, you are beautiful. Now the last survey that I read in terms of numbers was from around about 2010 that estimated there were around about 1,400 of these birds left in the wild. I'm hoping that now in 2017 that number's a little bit higher, but the study that I read basically suggested that that equated to around about 400 adult breeding age females. That's all in the entire world, which is why every time we see these birds it is such a special surprise. They are predatory birds. They wander about looking for snakes, sometimes even small rodents, baby scrub hares, anything like that that they happen to encounter. Giant land snails is another firm ground hornbill favorite, as a little entree before the main, and dung beetles, or beetles of any description. You can see with those powerful, powerful legs. There we go, he's going to fly. Whee! 1, 2, 3. Beautiful, Sensor. Well done. That very distinctive flash of white from their wings. Let's go catch up with them. They're not far. Hopefully, they decide to settle in this area. Oh, 4! There were 7. Cool. I want to go and try and get an idea of the dynamics of this group, because it could be a breeding pair and their offspring. It could also be a dispersal group. Let's go and see if we can figure out. By dispersal, basically what I mean, like with wild dogs, like with actually quite a few animals, essentially a situation where adult animals have reached sexual maturity and it's time for them to move off away from their parents. And what you find with ground hornbills is they tend to do that in same-sex groups. And they go off either a group of males or a group of females. And that's the time of their life, apparently, from what I understand, where they are under the greatest threat. And it seems as though their inexperience counts against them. Oh wow, there's 7 ground hornbills in one marula tree. Hold on a moment. They're all chasing each other around. Hold on. I don't want to drive too fast because I don't want to scare them away. adult size to me. Somebody said that they look like a Disney villain, and I have to say I couldn't agree more. You could see them wearing a cape and, what's the word, flouncing around, I guess. Shouting whenever their plans go awry. But old school Disney, like Sword in the Stone kind of Disney animation. I can picture it. Perhaps those of you who are artistic could do an impression of a ground hornbill villain. They're all hopping around in this marula tree. 1, 2, 3. Okay, one's flown away. They all look like adults to me. But I still haven't got a very good view of all of them. Lou apparently says that they remind her of Jafar from Aladdin. Agreed, completely. What was his bird's name? Iago. You never think of their agility in trees. We always see them, or we tend to see them either just perched or sitting on the ground, walking along the ground. You don't often get to see them hopping from limb to limb in the way that these ones are doing. Really very pretty. Although, of course, now all of them have hidden their heads. It's really quite difficult to have a look at the difference. That looks like a male to me. When we're looking at the adult birds, obviously they've got that very developed flap of skin underneath their bills. Look at those beautiful eyes. And in females, yeah, that's definitely an adult male. In females, there is a patch of bluish skin underneath that, a baldish bluish color. That is one of the distinctions between a male and a female. Oh, that feather looks like it could actually do with plucking, mister. Michael, you want to know, because we've spoken quite a bit about how endangered they are and the difficulties that ground hornbill face when it comes time to reproduce. Michael would like to know if there are any known ground hornbill nests on neighboring properties. One that I know of, yes. Look at this. A little bit of mutual grooming. That's not an adult. That is most definitely a younger one. Looking a bit scruffy and fluffy, and there is the female over there. So I think we do have a breeding pair, and they're almost fully grown offspring. Look, the female gently cleaning the sub-adult. When they're very young, they have an almost yellowish patch around them. Sorry, Michael. Yes, we do actually. There is a nest on Buffelshoek. Hook. Not active at the moment. We're not in hornbill breeding season. That's between October to around about March. November to around about March, and it is in the strangest place I have ever seen a hornbill nest ever. It's in where a dead limb of a marula tree has fallen off the tree itself, and it's this massive hollow cavern, and that is where we saw both the female and then a chick when Brent and I went to go and visit some friends there. So we do know of a ground hornbill nest. I immediately reported it so that the Sabi Sand could continue to manage it. I'm not sure if that chick survived. I hope that it did, but it did seem to be a very, very exposed nest. The other hornbill nests I've found have also been in marula trees, but a lot more protected and a lot more covered. The last one that I found was years ago by calling ground hornbills, but it was back when we were working with Mabula, which is the ground hornbill project. Last one I found was in a hollow of a dead branch of a marula tree, but the branch hadn't fallen off, so it had kind of made a cylinder, a hollow cylinder that the chick was in. And unfortunately, that chick got eaten by, we think, a caracal. We found the claw marks a couple of days later, and the nest was bare. But it was quite a surprise, because basically the way that we checked for the hornbill chick was to put a GoPro on a stick, because we didn't want to disturb it too much. We just held it over. I had to stand on somebody's shoulders to get there, and then we held it over the nest, and there was this little chick. It then very quickly attempted to attack the camera. Now, you don't mess with ground hornbill chicks. They can be vicious. Well, I suppose I don't blame it. I had no idea what we were. Karen would like to know why the ground hornbill is in a tree. Valid point, Karen. I think they're in a tree because they don't want to go into the damp grass. So ground hornbills roost at night in trees, like guinea fowl, like spur fowl. It's just a slightly safer place for them to be, especially when it's been raining. It's nice and sheltered up there. Ground hornbills do roost in trees. However, they do spend most of their day on the ground. Here's the female. That's the way in which they find their food. Christina, very good question. You want to know, what is she doing? Is she regurgitating? No, she's breaking that branch. What are you after that you've heard in there? Whatever it is, I think she's decided that it's not that exciting. So, Christina, you want to know what color are their eggs and how many do they lay? It's sort of an off-white color, if I remember correctly. Quite large, and they only lay 2. And that's one of the things that the Ground Hornbill Project has been involved with, because the second egg is an insurance policy with ground hornbills, like a lot of our birds of prey species. And what I mean by that is the first one to hatch is the survivor, or the one that's most likely to survive. And the second one that hatches a day or 2 later is just at such a disadvantage that it is continually outcompeted by its older sibling in terms of feeding, begging for the parent's attention, and often the older one will bully and peck at the younger one until eventually it dies. So it is almost guaranteed that a ground hornbill will only raise 1 chick. And that's one of the things that the Ground Hornbill Project does, is they take in the second egg. So what you've got to do basically is, if you find a nest, I only ever managed this once. If you find a nest and you find it when there are 2 eggs, then you go every day and you check until the first egg hatches. And as soon as the first egg hatches, they would take the second egg, put it in an incubator and airlift it to a place just outside of Pretoria, and continue to basically incubate the egg, hatch it, and raise the ground hornbill with puppets, so that they don't become imprinted or attached to human beings, which is quite a fascinating process, really. And the reason behind it is because ground hornbill numbers have dropped so dramatically, thanks to habitat loss, thanks to conflict with human beings, poaching potentially. There's lots of different reasons why ground hornbills as a species haven't been all that successful. And then it's really very complex, because they can't just release them back into the wild. They have to take them when they get a bit older and put them in a group with some older ground hornbills, and they need to learn from them. Then they need to learn how to babysit, because otherwise they don't breed successfully, and only then can they be released back into the wild. So all of our ground hornbill sightings are recorded and put in a database. I have been completely distracted and left poor Byron in the lurch. Let's go and see how he feels about that.
Well, Jamie, I feel much like those ground hornbills in being unsuccessful trying to find any animals this morning so far. I've been looking, I've had no tracks of lions at all. I've been checking the southern boundary. I've been trying to listen to see if they call again. Absolutely nothing for the moment. But it is still a cool morning, so I'm hoping that they decide to still move around quite a bit. Craig has asked me to find honey badger this morning. He says because it's winter and it's cooler, surely they should still be moving around. So perhaps. But for the moment, I've had no luck. I'm not sure. There's a grey go-away bird calling. Maybe the grey go-away bird has seen something. Let's go have a look. Unless it was just making a noise, and there it goes. Maybe it was calling at us. But hang on, are those birds in the tree there? Looks like it. Let's go around. I just want to see who's the vultures. That's what I thought they were. There we go. 2 vultures just perched up on top of this dead tree. Lynn from Michigan, you wanted to know if any of us are scared of spiders in the vehicle. Well, Lynn, after being in the tent the other day, I had a look at, there was that black button spider in the box just outside the tent. Now, you do not want to get bitten by that. So I do check the vehicle as best as I can to see those the sack spider or button spider hiding around here. That would not be good. Or those little spiders can give quite a nasty bite. But I wouldn't say scared, no. Just double check that any of those spiders aren't around. Anyway, look at these beautiful vultures, white-backed vultures. And I think they've just decided to roost here for the evening, and they'll wait. It does look like that one's crop is quite full. The one on the right, and the crop is that little, almost like a stomach that the vulture stores. Is that it? No, you know what? That's just the neck that it's bent in. It's just crouched its neck a little bit, pulled its neck in because it's cold. That's all that is. So as I was saying, they probably roosted here during the course of the evening and then wait for the day to warm up. Hopefully get some thermals, and that will help them fly around and look for food. But for now, they look very comfortable up there. Now this is great. I'm using this opportunity to try and listen out for those lions again. Hopefully we get something. It's a beautiful morning. Still some wispy clouds around. Neen, I'm not sure if these vultures would have been stuck in this tree for the last 2 days because of the rain. The vultures will still fly around, in between little bursts of rain. They will move from one tree to the other and possibly even try and still scavenge from something. But they won't fly around as much in the rain. But I don't think they would have been stuck in this tree for 2 days. Not at all. I do think they still would have been able to move around. The sounds of the Cape turtle dove calling. Sen, you say the vultures make you think of the Jungle Book. Yes, remember that original Disney Jungle Book cartoon where those vultures, I just remember that very well, the vultures sitting on the dead tree and they teasing, they were teasing Mowgli, I think, and they were jumping around and teasing each other. Those vultures from the Jungle Book. Oh, they do. It's nice to see the it's nice to see these white-backed vultures. Now, apparently we're going to go see a Disney character impala. I have no idea.
Another rather villainous-looking creature. And of course, we are joking when we label our animals villains. They're not villains. But this is a very, very distinctive impala, and I've seen him last year as well, at this time in this area, and he's so easily identifiable because he's got some kind of a skin condition around his eyes that makes him look as though he is wearing rather heavy eyeshadow. And of course, all impala are very aggressive at this time of year, male impala. They do spend their lives chasing males and females around, the males to get rid of them and the females to somehow entice them. Come on, boy, out you come. There he goes. But this one is particularly aggressive, in my opinion. And he's become very familiar to me. How do I know it's him? Well, he's got that silly little flap of skin on his ear. And last year he was a chief aggressor in terms of chasing other male impala around, and he was so bashed up by the end of the rutting season that he was absolutely covered in scars. And it's amazing to see the recovery process that a year has made. But look at him, he's so stocky, and he's got such a swagger to him. He's going to go and check up on his harem, make sure no males have come in sneakily while he's been chasing other males away. This is definitely his preferred area, and it's a good area because we've got the resident herd of impala on quarantine. So he's got prime territory. And just while we're looking at him, I owe you a deep apology for a mistake I made yesterday, which is terrible because I actually had just read about it. Impala don't have preorbital glands at all. They have a gland on their forehead, the top of their head, but they do not have preorbital glands. And I don't know why, I just have got into that habit with things like Steenbok and wildebeest and so on, of saying preorbital glands. So I do owe you an apology for that. They don't have preorbital glands. They have metatarsal glands, but no preorbital glands. So when they're thrashing the bushes, it's not to mark the scent with preorbital juice. So apologies for that. I wonder what it is that gives him that eye circle. I thought maybe it was mange, but I'm not 100% sure. I guess it could be any range of skin conditions. Just surprised that it hasn't healed up over the summer, over the rainy season. Alright, he's calmed down now. He's no longer playing the part of the Disney villain. Now he's just the regular guy who wants his breakfast. And I'm just a regular girl who wants to go and find a lion now. Alright, well, I carry on. Let's go and visit Lion James in the tent.
Yes, here I am in the tent, everybody. And what I was doing, I said, as Byron said, I saw a black button spider in the little box in the tent the other day. I said to myself, nay, what rubbish speakest thou? Because I saw that there was a brown button spider in there, and of course there was, but there isn't anymore. I opened up the box, and there, sure enough, seemed to be a black button spider. And what is very interesting, I think he probably showed it to you the other day, so I'm not going to do the same now. But what is interesting is that in the adults out here, the red hourglass on the abdomen, which of course is so distinctive of the button spiders, is absent. And so what we have in there is what looks to be a juvenile black button spider or black widow. Terrifying. Terrifying. Terrifying stuff. I think far more terrifying because it is much more common is what I have under the microscope now. Well done, Megan. That was exceptional. Right, so what we have here is a stink bug or shield bug. Now, it's called a shield bug because it looks like it's got a shield on its back. But it's called a stink bug, David, because it stinks. It makes a stink. That is absolutely correct. Well done. Now, what we have here, if we look at the top of the picture there, you've got two eyes, and you can see those. And then down below that, you've got two leg stubs. Now, I would try and point that out to you, but I'm just slightly worried that I'm going to disturb my little bug. I'm going to try and point it out. Oh, there's a pointer. That'll do. All right, so there is one leg. There's a leg, right? There's another leg, and there is another leg. So you can see where the 6 legs come from. Now, there is a gland in between the first and second legs of the stink bug, and it is from there that they produce a truly disgusting smell. I'm not sure that there is a smell in nature that, or in humanity, that can be compared with it. It, I suppose, could be described as very strong, rotting coriander. To my mind, all coriander tastes like stink bugs, but this particular shield bug makes, I think, a pretty disgusting smell. All right, let's come back to me, Megs, and I'll just pick it up properly, and Taylor may have shown you this yesterday, I'm not sure. She'd put it in a little box here, so she may have shown you the little shield bug. That's what it looks like. There we are. Very nice. That's why it's called a shield bug. And they fly around, and they look fairly innocuous. They look quite friendly until, of course, they land on you and you slap them with your hand, and that gland between the first and second legs exudes an evil-smelling stink onto your neck. All right, we're going to talk a little bit about the grasses of the Mara later, but before we do that, Byron would like to show you what he has not seen for the last 3 days.
This is true, James. We have not seen the sun, but it's peeking through those clouds beautifully at the moment. And look at that view, everyone. We've got such a lovely, lovely view of those sun rays coming through the clouds and shining down on the mist down in that little valley. Very, very beautiful. That's lovely. Now, again, I haven't heard any lions, any sign of those lions. I'm trying to listen, but I haven't called again, which is a pity. Makes it harder for us, but it's okay. We're not going to give up just yet. Perhaps we find a big male leopard walking around. Never know. We shall see. We shall see. John, it's not necessarily easy to locate a lion when it is roaring. It does give you a better idea of where the lion is. However, John, the thing is, especially on clear, cold mornings like this, the sound can travel a lot further. So it makes it a bit more difficult to gauge exactly where the lion is. I used to work with 1 or 2 trackers in the past, and they were unbelievable at pinpointing where the calls were coming from. But it does take a bit of practice to kind of understand maybe the weather that you've got, and then that range that roar can be heard. I had a feeling that these lions were possibly south of our boundary this morning, but thought we'd have a look. Maybe they would walk up onto our side, onto Djuma, but it sounds like they're still south, or it looks like they're still south of the boundary, because we saw no tracks of lions anywhere. But it's not always easy, but it helps a lot. It does help a lot if you can hear the lions, know which area to go and look in then. Just while I'm driving, I'm also just constantly checking the road for any tracks or signs of animals that may have moved around here in the last few hours. I saw a lot of elephant tracks earlier, just not too far down the road. Big herd, it looks like, stopped and fed in a specific area. A lot of branches also spread all over the road. That's from elephant. You can see some elephant tracks here. So let's hope maybe we bump into some elephant. You can actually see, this is quite interesting, it's quite nice. So when you are tracking, and I'm just going to jump off quickly, but when you are tracking something like this, where okay, we've had a lot of moisture during the last few days, and even last night there was still a lot of drizzle, a lot of rain around, and you can see there's a very clear path, an animal that's moved through here, and this looks like from the elephant. You can see how the grass has been flattened, and also you can see how all the dew and moisture has been taken off the grass from them moving through. So that's why it does help when you have a little bit of rain. You might see where animals have moved through. Even tracking lions, if they walk off the road, you'd be able to follow their track very clearly of where they've walked through long, wet grass. Who are you talking to there, Craig? What comms are you getting? Now, Cosmic, lions roar can travel. I've read that they can be heard up to about 10 kilometers away on clear days. That's incredible. So, on a clear day, yeah, probably about 10 kilometers away by us. I'm sure by other lions it would be heard even further away than that. But I mean, I remember actually hearing lions before, in working in other areas and having communication with lodges on neighboring properties. And we said, listen, we can hear lions, and then they've said, listen, we just found them, and they've called. And those lions were at least 8 kilometers, 7-8 kilometers away from us. And it sounded a lot closer, especially in winter. Because of the cold air, also because the cold air is a bit heavier, it traps the sound. So when the sound does travel, it can travel further. Because the cold air sinks, so it pushes things like smells in the bush, it pushes them down. Sound won't travel, let's call it up as much. It'll travel further because the heavy, colder air will keep that sound down. I'm also scanning these termite mounds just to see if there's perhaps a leopard lying up on a termite mound trying to get out of this wet grass. They don't really like the wet grass very much, so I'm scanning very carefully. Now, our lion search isn't going very well, but I wonder if Jamie is doing any better.
No, Byron, I'm most definitely not doing any better. I haven't even picked up on a footprint of a lion. Although, admittedly, the soil is so damp and hard that it might actually be over them as we speak, for all I know. One thing I can tell you, yesterday on the sunset safari, I don't know what was happening on Djuma. I assume some kind of elephant conference. Perhaps they were coming together to discuss the plight of humankind. Perhaps it had to do with CITES, I don't know, but we had about 100 elephants all outside the camp, right at the dam. They've all now gone, they've all been here. I was about to say they've all gone that way, and then I saw a track going that way, which completely changed my tune. I can tell you that there was at least one elephant bull in must, because I can smell him. These are all from last night. I always find it fascinating how we either seem to be brimming with elephants, or they've all vanished. There's no in between. It's one or the other. So they've walked all along this road. They might also have walked all over my lion tracks, for all I know. But I could just be using that as an excuse for my lack of success. These tracks are so fresh, I can still smell the elephants. So where are they? Huh. I don't know where they are. But wherever they happen to be, I'm sure they are enjoying the last of the summer grasses. And on that note, James would like to tell you about them.
The elephants or the summer grasses? I'm not sure. I'll tell you about the summer grasses, I think, because I can't see or hear any elephants. Can you, David?
No.
No. I can, however, hear the camp waking up, so that's quite interesting. Over here, however, there's something much more interesting. The thing that we opened on, those are the egg sacs, everybody, of Lactodectrus geometricus, or the brown button spider, and they are sitting on the tent. Now that got me thinking. Many of the button spiders, or the supposedly black button spiders, are in fact brown, and likewise the other way around. Brown button spiders can be black. And the proximity of this to this over here, which is the spider that Byron was talking about, is suspicious. So I'm going to open this up very carefully, of course. And there is the spider of which Byron speak. spoke about it. That's it there. Can you see it, David?
Yeah, I'll stand.
Now, it does have the distinctive hourglass shape on the bottom, but I don't know. I think it is. I think Byron's right. I think this is a black button spider, and I think the parent of those other things over there is probably somewhere close by. Now, of course, the worry with that is that you're going to sit on him, handle him by mistake, and then get yourself into a little bit of trouble. Anyway, apparently we're not going to talk about the summer grasses at the moment on account of the fact that Jamie has found the other thing of which she spoke before she linked to me.
I absolutely have. It wasn't terribly difficult to find them. I always feel a little bit silly when I go, I can smell the elephants, the tracks are so fresh, and then I send you off to another person and drive 20 meters and see the elephants that I should have seen earlier. Nevertheless, we're going to not complain about that too much because we've got a lovely sighting of these two young bulls who, on this nice and cool morning, are feeling full of the joys of autumn. Okay, or were. Right up until you came to us. They now decided they want breakfast. The two of them have been playing on top of this termite mound. They're either playing or practicing yoga. One of them did a full downward-facing dog, which was most impressive, on a termite mound as well, which I imagine is more difficult for an elephant than it is for a human being. So two youngish bulls, there we go. One wants breakfast, one wants to play. Or take advantage of a back turned. I'd also run away if somebody poked me in the bottom like that. That was mean. Shame. We had such a beautiful elephant sighting yesterday. It really truly was extraordinary. A group of them, or a herd of them playing together, babies everywhere, young males everywhere, musk bulls. It was just... You didn't even want that grass after all that. You prodded him out of the way, now you've just thrown it over your shoulder. Yes, you just want to fight this morning. You just want to practice your fighting skills. Now, apparently, for those of you that are watching the dam camera while you watch our live safari, you would have seen there's one of the massive bulls, quite possibly one of the ones that we saw yesterday at the Djuma dam camera. And there's a certain inevitability to the presence of that many females, that many breeding herds of elephant, that they will bring all of the musk bulls in the area to hang out with them. You always get, hanging out on the outskirts, groups of young males and then the large, fully grown males who are looking for the opportunity to find a female in estrus. And for these young boys, who are just at the age where they're basically either right on the outskirt of the herd or they've actually been pushed out entirely, and for these young boys, the chance to mate won't come just yet. They're not quite big enough to compete with some of the bigger bulls. Hello, my boy, you're going to come say hi? No, I just wanted to eat something here. Our road rash, of course, whenever we sit with these magnificent creatures, we're always careful about the way in which we behave with them. Yes, you're thinking about it, huh? But road rash would like to know if an elephant would charge without warning. Potentially, yes, particularly in an area where they've been traumatized. Rollo, you ready? Good. We just might do some VR recording as well at the same time. Hello, big boy. Yes. Oh, okay. Just a quick visit then, is it? Just want to come round the side of us. It's always special when they pass this close to the vehicle. I thought he was going to come right up to us and say hello, but it seems as though he had other things on his mind. Most importantly, the nice grass underneath the silver cluster leaf is where his attention seems to be based. Oh, bye. We were talking about Road Rash's question, and I didn't actually quite finish that answer. Most of the time, elephants will give you a warning sign. In fact, I find you can feel almost unequivocally when an elephant does not want you around versus when they do. But we're lucky in this area because the elephants here are relatively relaxed. But in places where they have been poached, I would say yes, there is a possibility that they could charge a vehicle without any prior warning. I've never experienced it, fortunately. The closest I've ever come was at night, and that was, let's have a look at what he's trying to dig up there. The closest I've ever come was at night, and that was just because I didn't see the elephant. It was dark, and I'd turned off my lights for an incoming vehicle, and I'd pulled off the road, and I pulled off straight into an elephant, who then decided to come running at me, but that was entirely my fault. I just didn't see the elephant there, and all I heard was toof, 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 toof. I slammed the car forward and drove as fast as I could, away from the sound of the thudding footsteps. But beyond that, I've never had a charge where there hasn't been some kind of prior warning. And elephants are not kind. Elephants are intelligent, and they don't want to set out to hurt you. So if you see warning signs, and if you get a warning charge, not a mock charge is the wrong way of describing it. If you get a warning charge, you take the very first opportunity that you get to leave that elephant alone. It's as simple as that. If you push it beyond that, then it's your own fault for whatever comes of that. And it's not fair on the elephants or any other animal. If they're telling you to go away, go away. Sometimes you can't. If they're standing right in the front of the vehicle, then switching on and moving off can actually provoke them. But as soon as they move away, as soon as they give you that opportunity in that space, you leave. You certainly don't try to follow them. Now, speaking of elephants and elephant charges, they said, you want to know if I ever get nervous being around these big animals. I would be lying if I said there haven't been times in my life where my heart rate has gone right up. And I think that anybody who tells you that they haven't been nervous in situations like that is either exceptionally blasé or lying. Yes, there have been times when I've had elephants looming around the vehicle, and I wouldn't say I've been scared, but I have been aware of my adrenaline pumping and my heart beating faster, and aware of the fact that the situation is yes, I've got a degree of control, but the situation is essentially in their, if not hands, then very capable trunks. And that knowledge and that feeling of being so phenomenally small is very humbling, and I think is very important. It's half of the magic of elephants. If you're lucky enough to have them close enough to your vehicle like that, it's a special experience. So yes, I have been nervous. Absolutely I have. And that's not a bad thing, because the minute you stop being nervous or stop being aware of potential situations, the more likely you are to run into serious trouble. I think we should always remember just how potentially dangerous these animals are, but it's more than that. It's just the fact that we owe them the respect not to put ourselves in that situation, or them, more importantly. Look at the way he's stripping those leaves. There's not a single leaf left on those branches. I think this one's going to come up and say hello to us as he comes past. Now he's hidden, but I don't want to reposition. I just want to wait for him to come out. Speaking of elephants and warnings, Anna-Marie, you want to know how often the elephants will warn us? I think it's very circumstantial. It would be difficult for me to give you an exact number. And of course, there's different degrees of warning. Sometimes a head up and ears out is just a message that doesn't necessarily mean back off. It just might mean you stay there and don't you cause any trouble. I'm much bigger than you. And then they relax immediately and carry on. So it's difficult to say exactly what I would consider a warning and what is basically essentially just communication between us and the elephants. It doesn't often happen, actually. These elephants are so relaxed around vehicles that we usually, the warnings that we get are usually playful young elephants that are coming up to come and charge us and show how big and scary they are. Cheetah plains, it happens slightly more often than it does here, and that's because the elephants come from on that sort of eastern side of Cheetah Plains. They come from the western edge of the Kruger National Park, And that's quite a vast space in that area where there's not that many roads and they don't encounter that many people. And they tend to, especially during the drought, I noticed that the elephants that came in from that area were very unsettled and under pressure. So it happened more frequently then. But it doesn't often happen. And there's a big difference between, say, this young bull coming up to me now and trying to show off how big and strong he is, which doesn't mean that he isn't big and strong. He's just still quite young. And a full-grown female with a calf coming up to me and saying, "You go away now." There's very, very big difference in the way in which you interpret their behavior. One is cheeky, but part of the natural part of growing up, and the other is rather more serious. It's the same with lion charges. Scariest lion charges I've had in my life, hands down, have come from females, from lionesses. But you're not thinking about that, are you, boy? You just want your breakfast. One of my favorite things about elephants is their hairy lips. I just love it. Our Shaylin, while we watch our elephant, you want to know, well, if an elephant does charge you, how fast can they charge? Around about between 12 and 15 meters per second. Having long legs helps to move very quickly, so faster than you can run, which is why we always say whatever you do, don't run, because that can turn a warning into a full-blown charge. So faster than we can go, 15 meters per second, what's that, about 45 feet per second. That's crazy fast when they're at full speed. And if you've ever seen an elephant walking, you can imagine just how fast they can actually run when they want to. And again, there are a few signs that it's not serious. Ears out and trunk up and lots of noise. Chances are that elephant is warning you. Ears back and tongue tucked up underneath the chin and completely silent, then you're in trouble. Then those elephants do mean business. But that doesn't mean that a noisy, ear out, trunk up elephant charging at you couldn't actually be provoked into a full charge. It's just some of the signs to look for. I don't think he's going to come and join us this way. Let me go forward a little bit then. Or, which way are you going to go, boy? Hey, mister. There was a certain inevitability to that. Oh, you want my face on camera? Well, try now. I'll just pop it behind this thick tree. There you go. You can have a look at my bottom instead. Our Stanley times 3. Stanley. You want to know, how does standing on a termite mound help? I am assuming you mean when you're on foot with an elephant charge, or do you mean when the elephant is standing on the termite mound? Which direction are we going here? Okay. Alright, we have been talking about charges, so that makes more sense. So how does standing on a termite mound help in a situation where an elephant's charging you and you're on foot? One of the big things is a psychological advantage. You've got the higher ground, and that means that the animal has to look, well, not quite up at you, but at least it's not looking as far down as it would be if you were down on the ground. So having higher ground always helps. It's a psychological thing. It makes you seem bigger and more intimidating, which, if you happen to be in that position, is probably... I don't necessarily always agree that if you are in a tricky situation that intimidation is your best answer, but sometimes it is the only answer, and so having higher ground is a way of making yourself look bigger and scarier. It's also just harder to navigate for the elephant, although I don't think that actually has that much of an impact, because I have seen elephants quite happily run up and down termite mounds when they want to. They are not clumsy creatures, actually. They're more than agile enough to climb up a termite mound if they feel like it. So there is a psychological basis to that. It works with most things in a situation where you're being charged. It works for them as well. They do exactly the same thing. That's why I was a bit confused about the direction to take that question in, because earlier on we were watching that young male climb up onto the termite mound and use it to force his opponent backwards just by having that advantage of height. And the only time I've ever seen an elephant climb a tree, sort of, was again in a situation where two young males were fighting, and the one male that was at a distinct disadvantage because he was a bit smaller climbed onto a fallen marula tree and then basically fell forward into the other elephant to push it backwards. So having higher ground does help. Our earlies have vanished, and I know that we interrupted poor James before he could continue his grasses lesson. Let's go and see what he has to teach you about.
Well, I'm not sure how much I've got to teach you, but we did have a question from somebody called James. What a good name that is. Let's just take a minute to consider it. Yes, it is a very good name. About the grasses of the Mara and which grasses are there and what are the best ones. Well, there are two interesting ones. None of them have anything to do with the one that I'm holding here. This is called Digitaria eriantha, and you may see that there's a spider in the middle of it, which we will look at under the microscope shortly. But I did look extensively around the tent for the main grass that attracts the wildebeest and the Thompson's gazelles and the zebra to the Mara, and I can't find any around the tent here. It is called red grass. We've spoken about it often on Drive, or Thermida triandra. And that grass over there is called red oat grass, which is a wonderful kind of rich name and gives an impression of the richness of it. And it grows in hugely thick stands. It looks like, so thick that you can't, to sort of find the ground underneath it is quite difficult. So that's the the primary grass that attracts all the animals there. And then the other interesting thing is that you get a number of what we call pennisetum species. The most commonly known in South Africa, certainly, I don't know about the rest of the world, is Pennisetum clandestinum. Now, I love the name Pennisetum clandestinum. Do you, David?
Yes.
Yeah, because clandestinum, of course, means clandestine, means hidden. And it's called that because the inflorescence is hidden. You can hardly see it. And it's most commonly known, of course, as kikuyu, which is a very popular lawn grass in many parts of the world. And those Pennisetum species come from that area. That lawn grass comes from there. And the inflorescence of it is, or the seeds, you can just see. I don't know if you, like I say, I don't know if you get this grass elsewhere in the world, but we certainly use it here. If you mow the lawn, a few days later, you'll just see these little sort of translucent stalks coming out of the grasses, and those are the clandestine inflorescences of Pennisetum clandestinum. Dun, dun, dun. That's the end of the grass story. Now, let's go on to the spider story. David, you should say spider like that. I find it much more satisfying than saying spider.
Spider.
Spider. Terrifying creatures, you know. Now, I did manage to do this by hand earlier. I'm now failing miserably. Hang on a second. 1 second. There we go. Ooh. There is the little spider, David. Do you see it?
I see it.
You see the spider. And it's in its little nest. And I'm going to try and identify during the course of this 3-hour show what kind of a spider this one is. I'm not sure. It has a distinctive brown stripe down its bottom. It has a distinctive sort of mottled appearance on the abdomen. It is very translucent, and it is only about, I'm going to say 3 millimeters long, 2 millimeters long. And it is living in the inflorescence of this Digitaria eriantha bush, which I think is very cool indeed. Now I'm going to replace this grass back where I found it. It's obviously not going to grow anymore because it is been pulled out, but the inflorescence will survive like this for weeks until something tries to eat it or blows it over. So I wouldn't have harmed the spider at all. We might keep him or her a little bit closer to the tent than we would have otherwise. So that is the story there with the spider and the story of the grasses. Very good. Then I think what you'll find, just quickly before we move on from the grasses, in fact, let's just go and have a look at this. If you go out into the Mara on foot, which unfortunately we're not going to be able to do a huge amount of, but you don't find too many areas like this where if you get down to ground level, and certainly you've seen this often when we do the aerial shots over here, it often looks like it's almost bare ground, and that's because the tufts of grass are interspersed with quite a lot of sand. And that's because the soil here is very different. There's far less clay here than there is in the Mara. And what it means, of course, is that it actually holds far fewer nutrients, the soil does. And so that's why it doesn't produce the swards of grass that we get up in East Africa. Also why it doesn't support the same numbers of animals. Of course, we don't have the migrations here, so it's a much more consistent game viewing experience. But the grass, definitely, the soil here is much more ancient, far fewer volcanic activity, or far less volcanic activity in the sort of relatively recent past. And that means that the soil is far less fertile down here, and that's why it doesn't support the same numbers or the same thickness of grass that it does up there in East Africa. Good. Let's head across to Byron. He apparently has got something that is swimming despite the coldness of the morning.
We have indeed, James. We've got some hippo in the water. We are down at Chitwa Dam. It's a beautiful morning here around the dam. The sun is shining through. It's really a beautiful scene. But the glare coming off of the water at the moment is quite intense. It's just very, very, very bright. And what happens is, after all this rain that we've had, and you can see it, I don't know how you're doing that, Craig, I can't see anything. But what happens after all this wonderful rain that we've had, everything settles, all the dust, and the air is crystal clear. It's really beautiful. Now there are a lot of hippo around, and it's starting to drizzle. Do you see that? Monkey's wedding, Craig. When it's sunny and raining, monkey's wedding. I can hear Egyptian geese in the distance. There's plenty of hippo here, popping up every now and then. And what other little birds? Oh, there's a big bird. It's actually a nice view of the big bird. Up in the top of that tree, there it is, the fish eagle, the resident fish eagle around here. I think it must be a resident fish eagle. Probably has a nest somewhere nearby. Perfect spot for this fish eagle, but wouldn't it be great if we saw it fishing? Now, I've only seen that properly twice, I think, the fish eagle diving down and trying to catch fish and actually catching fish. I've only seen it twice before. How many hippo there is? 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 hippo. That young hippo, I just saw its head pop up, but it's definitely getting bigger. There was that young hippo that we saw, or hippo calf that we saw not too long ago, and it's still around, obviously, with the mother, but it's definitely getting much bigger. That looks like the little head over there. No, that can't be it. Yeah, I think they agree. I'm probably wrong. I think that other hippo is possibly further back. So, Ali, the hippo do rest in the water. In fact, when they come out on land, it's mainly just to feed. So they won't necessarily sleep on land. Although, you see, Ali, it's both. It's both. So what happens is especially now moving into winter, the hippo like to come out and bask on the banks of the riverbanks or of these water holes. And as they go and they bask on the bank, they will rest, they will sleep a bit. But it's literally just on the water's edge. And then they return to the water again. Now and then you do see them, again, only in winter, sleeping out in the bush somewhere. Maybe been feeding and then find a shady spot and they'll lie down and rest. It doesn't happen that often, but mostly they will rest in the water. So they'll find a shallow area, or an area that's deep enough just so that the body can submerge, but that they can keep their heads above water, and then they'll stay there, rest, and then move out when they need to go and feed again. So a bit of both, Ali, really. They'll rest on land and in the water. This glare is very, very bright at the moment. Now, we got an update that the lion that I did here was indeed south of our boundary, unfortunately. It was a male lion that they found. Hopefully it decides to move up in our direction. I'm going to drive around Chitwa a little bit, check the clearings, but Jamie has found some tracks she'd like to show you.
I don't have any tracks. I'm sorry, I'll draw you one. I'll pretend there's a lion. Hold on. I don't have any tracks at all. Look, this is what a lion track looks like. We'll make the best of an awkward situation, so shall we? I did actually have tracks. They were people tracks. It was somebody who got off, I think, for a leg stretch. Let's put it that way. Here, let's draw a lion track. Let's see how good my artistic skills are, since we can't actually find one. This might be what Rollo needs. It is actually what Rollo needs, except he needs a real one and not a fake one. Rollo, I'll explain in a moment who I'm talking about. There we go. That is a really big lion. That is in fact a giant lion. If I were to meet that lion, I would be slightly afraid. That would be a massive lion. But there you go. 3 little lobes at the back. Tells us it's a big cat and 4 toes. And if it were real, it would probably be roughly a third bigger than an actual lion. And there you go. I drew you some tracks since I didn't have any. I'm still hoping for tracks though. So the one lion is to the south, but I heard 2 this morning. I'm sure I heard 2. A bit concerned that because of the cold, the sound was actually coming from outside of our boundary. So remember how I said I was going to go to the corner of Buffelshoek, Torchwood and Djuma? Well, I'm here, eventually. It took me a little bit longer than I expected. But the only lion track is the one I've drawn. Ooh. Cosmic Traveler, you want to know what is my favorite big cat? It's really difficult to choose because, of course, in my life so far, I've only actually really been exposed to 3 of the big cats. I've seen tigers in zoos, but that's not really the same, is it? So I guess of the 3 of them, I would have to say leopard, absolutely. Leopards are, I don't know, they've got that air of mystery about them that's so intriguing. So I guess I'd have to say leopard, but bearing in mind that I have never actually seen a tiger in the wild, I know James has, perhaps he'd like to contribute as well, give his opinion on his favorite cat. I think that I would be truly awed by snow leopards. I cannot think of anything more exciting than seeing a snow leopard. Jaguar I've never seen, so I'm coming from a position of bias here when I say that a leopard is my favorite big cat. I've never seen a puma, so it's hard to say. But of the 3 that I know, and I know well, leopards would be my favorite. But it's so hard to choose. I mean, lions are so utterly, I don't know, intimidating in a way. There's that amazing social structure that they have that none of the other big cats have. Their incredible ability to hunt together as a team. And cheetah with their sleek speed. Oh, it's hard to choose. And turn the question around and say, what's your favorite big cat? Can you choose which of them is your favorite? I think, seeing as there's only one of us here, I think, unless I'm mistaken about Byron, there's only one of us out this morning that has seen tigers in the wild. Let's go and hear James's opinion.
My favourite cat, everybody, is a small brown Burmese called Mog. Mog, unfortunately, had to be euthanized in her old age when I was a small child. I've not recovered yet. That is a true story, but I have recovered. I think that, yes, as Jamie was saying, leopard's her favourite cat in the world. I was thinking much the same. But I would like to see a jaguar in the wild. I have seen tigers, very luckily. I was very privileged to see them earlier this year. They're fantastic. They're amazing to watch. There's just something about a leopard, though. Maybe it's because of our experience with them. Maybe it's, if I was to spend more time with tigers, I'd feel differently about them. But there's something about a leopard and its resilience, especially in the face of human pressure, I think, that I find so very attractive. Now, let's come over here. I wasn't reading a book just for the sake of reading a book, because, of course, reading while talking to you would be, it would be a bit rude, wouldn't it? There's something in the grass over here, and this is an excellent time of the day to be looking at what it is that I have here in the grass, because it's still a little bit chilly. Can you see it, David?
I see it.
What we don't want to do is alarm it terribly and make it fly away. It is one of the blues. Now, yes, I know it's not blue. It doesn't look at all blue, does it, David? It looks black and white, doesn't it? So you might ask yourself, why is it not called a black and white? Well, if it was to open its wings, you would see that it is, in fact, blue. And that particular blue butterfly, of which there are an intimidating number, is called, I think, a dotted blue. And that, David, is because it has dots. Well done. There should also be a stripe just between the fore and hind wings, but this chap's folded his wings up really quite nicely, so I'm not sure we'll see that. And then if you look over here, I'm pretty sure that's who he is. There aren't any others that look like that. That's the dotted blue. But that's what he looks like when he opens his wings up. No, not like that, sorry. He looks like that. See? So they've got lots of blue on the inside. And they can, I suppose, also look like that one there. That is the female. She is unfortunately drab and unattractive. Whereas he, of course, is brilliant and magnificent looking. So that looks like a male. Apparently that's the underside of the male. Dotted blue. Very nice. Now, of course, as soon as you get down to this level, and especially as the sun comes out, you're almost certainly going to find something that you didn't expect to find, David. Now, if you follow the line of this grass stalk, I will show you something not that amazing, but it's quite amazing. Simply because it is so very well hidden. You watching, David? Are you keeping up with me there? Look there. Can you see it? Can you see the grass stalk?
I got the grass stalk.
Can you see what it's pointing at? You see that? I'm circling its head.
Oh, goodness.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, we got it.
It's a grasshopper. A very well camouflaged grasshopper that has now hopped away. You still got him? He's moved away now. There he is. I think that's very cool. So he'll be sitting there also just heating up a little bit like that butterfly, waiting for the sun to come out. And of course, after a weekend of fairly foul weather, We'll have a situation now where there's moisture in the soil and hopefully some sun for the rest of the day, and that will bring out some enthralling insects, which will be wonderful. And soon our little blue butterfly will open its, well, semi-blue wings and fly away, as we are going to go to Jamie, because she too, like this butterfly, is enjoying the sun.
I'm loving the sun, and I'm hoping that, as James said, it brings out all sorts of animals to warm themselves after the dampness of the last few days. I almost want to go and stop and just bask like a giant reptile, lie in the sun and get it to warm us. It's the nice thing about winter out here, is even though it is going into winter, the sun is still warm. There's still a hint of warmth to it. It's not like when you go to colder climes and you go and stand in the sun and you can't feel the difference at all. So this is a mystery lion. I could have sworn I heard a lion somewhere here, but if it was here, it certainly didn't leave any footprints. So now what? Hyena Road, I guess. When in doubt, check Hyena Road. Desperately seeking lion tracks. Put that in the personals. Hi, little one. There we go. Oh. Here we go. Little creature that has come out. Also looking decidedly damp from moving about in the wet grass. Look at that. Hello, little Steenbokkie. If I move now, I know you can't actually see it properly, but if I move now, it is most definitely going to run away. And we'll just have to settle for this view. Also searching for sun, although probably, unlike myself, not searching for lions. Here we go. Oh, big stretch. Stretch out those cold joints. Little female Steenbok. Hi, girl. Relieved, I think, that the rain is done for now. Isn't she beautiful? Look at her little nose working, taking in our scent, working out if we are something to be dashed away from, or if she's okay to just stand here. They are gorgeous. And we actually haven't seen that many, or I personally, I can't speak for anybody else, I personally haven't seen that many Steenbok recently. I think it's the length of the grass. And there we go. Rachel, you say they seem very skittish. They are skittish. A Steenbok and a duiker are shy little antelope. They're not like our herds of impala that will happily go about their day-to-day business while we sit and watch them. Little Steenbok and duiker like to hide away. The advantage that we have in situations like this is most of the time their natural instinct is to freeze, and then only if they think they're well and truly spotted will they dash away. Although I think she knows that we've seen her. She's just quite relaxed about the whole deal. So we've got lucky. We've got one of the ones that isn't too skittish. Her ears still working, still alert, listening. Perhaps she's heard the lion roar, because as Larry says, if a lion roars and there's no one around to hear it, does it really roar? Deep philosophical question for the morning, Larry. Except there was someone around to hear it, me. I just haven't worked out where it is yet. Or was. Bet you the Steenbokkie knows. Either way, she's not too concerned. She's ruminating now. I don't know if you noticed that bulge in her neck as the ball of cud came up from the stomach into her mouth to be chewed once again for the second time. Down it goes. Wait for the next one. While she's looking at us, our Laura Moore, you say that their black nose is so cute. It is cute, isn't it? It's adorable. Especially when it twitches like that. It's like something out of a Beatrix Potter novel. Wasn't James talking about Jeremy Fisher yesterday? It is a mark of how things have changed on Safari Live, or at least I've changed since working with Safari Live, in terms of the things I've noticed about animals, and I have you to thank for that. I'm looking at the direction that its jaw's moving. It always goes in the same direction as she chews. She hasn't alternated once while we've been watching her. These are the strange things we end up observing. Let's have it. Maybe she's going to turn her head for us again. Oh, I apologize if I've got your name wrong. I'm not sure if it was Fiscal Truth or something along those lines. Tris for Truth. Tris for Truth, so not Fiscal Truth at all. Close enough, though. You want to know if the black line on the top of the nose is for scent marking. No, but talking... sorry, just listening to the Game Drive radio. Talking about my mistake with impala yesterday, they most definitely do have preorbital glands, and you can actually see them in the indents just between the eye and the nose. So they do scent mark with preorbital glands. That black strip along the nose is just part of her markings, and probably, like all facial markings, serves some kind of purpose in terms of emphasizing her facial features and for communication. I can't think why else. I think it's just naturally just how it is. I can't think why else they would have that black strip. It could be that in marking with her preorbital glands, she's rubbed the fur away on the top of her nose. They are territorial, both males and females, so it could be that she's rubbed it away, but it seems so perfect, so perfectly symmetrical. I'm not 100% sure on that. She's gorgeous. All of the animals coming out to enjoy the sun. Let's go and have a look at a really colourful one with James.
This is the most beautiful, beautiful shot of the yellow pansy butterfly. David is being very fussy about it. He wanted to move a grass stalk, and I saw him about to do it, and I said, "Nay, thou shalt not," because this butterfly is very sensitive to movement and any change in light. So if you pass a shadow over it, it immediately assumes, of course, that it's going to be attacked by a predator, and it will fly away. But David, you may now move your grass stalk if you wish.
Right.